There we go. Where's Osimo?
Or sorry about me here. Hi.
All right.
We have agenda for today is starting by Scotty talking about 20 minutes around. And after this, we have a panel between us here. We'll be back at the end for open question from the audience, okay? And then we close this in around 1 hour webinar. So thank you for coming, Scotty and Mario and Alcides. It's a great pleasure to have you here. Let's talk about Disciplined Agile, way of working, and a lot of things. Scotty, you can share your screen as you prefer. Feel free to start. Your turn. Feel free to start.
Okay, I will. Thank you. Let me share my slides here. So what I would like to do is I'm going to spend about 20 minutes talking about a very deep topic that has a lot of there's a lot of material here. So we're gonna cover it very, very quickly. So my name is Scott Ambler. I'm the co-creator and of Disciplined Agile along with Mark Lyons. I'm the Vice President and Chief Scientist for DA at Project Management Institute. You can reach me via various ways, and I would invite you to drop by the Disciplined Agile Hub on PMI.org. So I want to very quickly go through several big topics to give you a feel for what I wrote in Mundo PM and just for what DA is in general. But like I said, this will be a very quick overview of a very big topic. So first of all, why should you choose your WOW? This slide overviews the Disciplined Agile mindset, and we've gone beyond the Agile Manifesto when we describe the mindset. But some of the key ideas here for why choosing your way of working, choosing your WOW, is critical to your success. One of the principles is context counts. You are a unique person. You are a unique, your team is unique. You face a unique situation. So you want to have a fit for purpose approach that addresses the actual needs that you have. A large team will work in a different way than a small team. A team that is building an office building will work in a different way than a team that's building an application for an iPhone, for example. So different teams in different situations will work in different ways, and rightfully so. Choice is good. So because you want to have a fit for purpose approach, that means you need to be able to choose your own ways of working. And this is actually a concept from the very early days of Agile. We used to talk very clearly about how teams should own their own process. They should choose their own way of working. But then the Agile community never really gave any advice for doing that, because we started focusing on adopting frameworks rather than tailoring our own ways of working. So we want to optimize flow. We want to be as effective as we can within our team and across teams and across our organization. And because frankly, we want to be awesome. We want to have a good time. We want to enjoy what we do and be good at what we do and always be learning, always getting better. And one aspect of that, obviously, is to allow teams, to enable teams to choose their own way of working. So why is this important? Like, why not just adopt a framework like Scrum or SAFe or LESS or others? Well, that can be a good start. So I'm going to share some data with you from a gentleman by the name of Dr. Don Reifer. And he has been doing research into the question of how effective is Agile for a long time. He actually earned his PhD doing this, and he's turned it into a business since then. And what he's found is that, on average, the organizations that are adopting these frameworks are doing okay. They're seeing a 7 to 12% productivity improvement, which is good, but it's certainly not the major improvements that we hear about. And there's a lot of anecdotes out there. Do twice the work in half the time, and adopt this framework, and this organization adopted this framework, and now they're 10 times more productive. And certainly, a lot of those anecdotes are true. I've seen things like that, but it's usually because those organizations were really messed up to begin with, and frankly, doing anything would have helped them. So really, it wasn't adopting the framework that helped. It was just, being a little bit smarter about the way you work was really helping them. So anyway, so there's a benefit from adopting the frameworks. But one of the challenges we see, so this is the blue curve is a classic S curve. And this is what happens, right? Because a framework solves a certain problem. Scrum solves a certain problem, SAFe solves a certain problem. So when you adopt those frameworks successfully, well, you solve the problem. And then they don't really have much more to tell you other than anecdotes and other than platitudes of, this is the art of the possible, and you can do anything, and you can tailor, the framework to meet your needs. And yes, that's certainly true, but they give you no advice, right? Other than maybe we'll hire an expensive coach. So they leave it up to you. And some of the frameworks don't even give you the full details of the solution, right? Scrum, for example, which is great, but it purposely leaves out technical issues. So if you're doing anything technical, Scrum has gaping holes in it. That's their decision. But anyway, so the frameworks are part of the solution, but they're not the whole solution. So what do? It really is left up to you. So Disciplined Agile is not a framework; it's a toolkit, and we originally called it a framework, but because everybody else was using the term framework. But we very quickly realized that DA was different than everything else available to you in the market. So where the frameworks tell you what to do, how to solve a certain problem, DA instead walks you through, here's what you need to think about, here's what you need to decide on, here are some good options, and here are the trade-offs. So you choose the best strategy, the best technique that you can do in the situation that you face. And because you face a different situation than a team down the hall from you, or a team that a colleague might be working on, you need to choose your own way of working, and you need the skills to do that and to evolve your way of working as you learn and as your situation evolves. So one process size does not fit all. So an interesting question is how do you do this? So there's a technique called Kaizen, or continuous improvement. And there's various flavors of it, PDCA and PDSA. But the basic idea is that you follow an improvement process that looks like this. You improve in small steps. And this is what the Amazons and the eBays of the world do. So these really scary, these really effective organizations, well, how do they work? Well, they improve in small steps. And the reason why they got as good as they are was because they've been doing this for a long time. So what they do is they'll identify a problem, they'll identify something they need to work on or something they want to improve. Then they identify different ways to improve, one or more ways they could potentially improve it. Then they experiment with the technique. They try it out in practice to see if it works for them in the situation that they face. And they give it a fair try. Then they assess how well it worked out. And if it worked out well, they adopt it. If it doesn't work out well, they abandon it. And then if they're polite, they share their learnings with others. So what's interesting is that some organizations have started adopting this. And some organizations struggle with the word experiment because experiments will fail. So there's some cultural issues there. But the reality is this is the basic strategy that the really effective organizations are doing. They're not adopting these frameworks, but instead they are taking an experimental, a learning-driven approach, and they are improving in small steps over time. And this is how they've gotten really good. So the question is how can we get better at this? And this is where DA kicks in, because one of the challenges with this strategy is that some of these experiments fail. And as I said, some organizations really struggle with that as a concept. You say, well, what do you mean? Why don't you just tell us what to do? Tell us the best practice. There is no such thing as best practices. That is a completely naive concept. What the issue is that any given strategy works well in some situations. So it might be best for you in your situation, but it could be a spectacularly bad idea in another. And because everybody's situation varies, nobody can tell you what the best practices are for you. Well, maybe an experienced coach can. But somebody who's on the other side of the planet writing a magazine article or writing a book can't tell you what the best practices are for you. So instead, we've got to be smarter about this. So anyway, so some of these experiments are going to fail. That's okay. So then what happens? Well, then the consultants and the coaches will tell you, well, you know what? It's really about failing fast. And certainly failing fast is a lot better than failing slowly, but it's still failing. And if you're the person paying the bill for all these failures, it's not as attractive as it sounds. We've got to be smarter about this. And one of so where's the real problem here, right? So it's not in experimentation, and this is where a lot of organizations struggle, right? Because they're afraid to experiment, they're afraid to fail, and because they want to fail less often, their reaction is, well, let's not run these experiments, let's not try to learn. Well, that's not what you need to do. What we need to do is get smarter about what we're experimenting with. So if we can get better at identifying potential techniques to experiment with, we'll have fewer failures. That means we succeed more often, so we improve faster, and it's cheaper. You're still going to have a few failures. You're human. You're going to make a few mistakes, but it's going to be a lot. You'll be a lot. If you can figure out how to identify these potential techniques, then you'll be in much better shape. So how do you do that? Well, if you have experience, if you have access to an experienced coach, somebody who's already solved similar problems to what you currently face, then they can give you advice. If you have these people, if you can find them, and if you're willing to listen to them, because the issue becomes one of humility. So even though you're unique in a unique situation, chances are pretty good many other people have solved similar problems to what you currently face. So if you're humble enough to recognize this and humble enough to realize that maybe we can leverage the learnings of others, that we don't need to make things up, that we don't need to experiment with questionable techniques, that we could potentially learn from others and identify something that's more likely going to work in our situation, then we're in much better shape. And this is what Disciplined Agile teaches you how to do. We help you to make better decisions, and by putting these techniques into context. And we call this technique guided continuous improvement. So it's the same technique that people have been doing for decades, but we're a bit smarter about it because we're humble enough to realize we can learn from others and take advantage of that. So why is this important? Well, so where we see adopting an Agile framework, and like I said, the Agile frameworks are great. They're wonderful starting points. Where we see Agile frameworks with a learning curve like this, or an improvement curve like this, and continuous improvement with an improvement curve like this, like the Kaizen type approach that the Amazon, the eBays of the world are doing. Well, with Disciplined Agile, you can enjoy a learning curve that looks like this. That's a steeper, that has a steeper, an improvement curve that looks like this. We improve faster because we can be smarter about what we experiment with. So in Disciplined Agile, our philosophy is start where you are, do the best that you can in the situation that you face, and always strive to get better. So always strive to improve. So let's run through some examples. Why is this important? Well, obviously we can improve it. We can choose to improve at the individual and the team level. But what's interesting in a lot of organizations and is that Agile teams hit what I call the Agile glass ceiling, where Agile struggles to get out of the software development or out of the IT space. But it's interesting because my team, the team that I'm currently on, has to interact with other teams. One of the great myths in the Agile community is that Agile teams are autonomous, and that's simply not true. They might be semi-autonomous, and that's a good thing, but I have to interact with others. So in this case, my team, in order to get funding, has to interact with the finance group. In order to hire people, we need to interact with the human resources department, the people management group. In order to release something into production or into the marketplace, we have to go through the release management process. Because if I work for a large organization that has hundreds or thousands of teams working on things, then there's going to be some coordination going on. I hope at least there's going to be some coordination going on, and we're going to have to work with those people doing it and follow whatever processes or use whatever tools to do this. So we're going to have to work with this group perfectly fine. And the implication here is that when my team works with another team, we have to agree on how we're going to work together. We're going to have to agree on the rules. So in all these examples here, we run into situations where my team wants to work in an Agile manner, but the other team doesn't, because they have their ways of working, they have their mindset, they have their priorities, and they have their preferences, and rightfully so. So if their preferences are different than our preferences, then we need to hopefully negotiate a better way of working across the two teams. So let's consider this example where we're struggling to finance, to change the way that our team is being financed. So this is a really common problem that, I've run into many organizations or many teams where this is a problem, that the finance group is out of sync with the Agile teams. And the challenge is the finance group has very good reasons for doing what they do. And it's not that they don't want to change, it's that they don't hear a good story. So the delivery team, the Agile teams come to the Agile coach comes in and says, well, we don't want to do this fixed price stuff up front. We would rather, because in this case, the finance team wants us to give an upfront estimate, a detailed upfront estimate, and they want us to go through a formal request process. And that makes perfect sense to them. And they believe they're reducing financial risk, and they've got their reasons for doing this. So they believe in what they're asking for, and rightfully so. But they don't realize maybe that there are better ways of doing this that are less risky. So in this diagram, in the secure funding goal diagram, what we do is we present choices. So when I go to secure funding for my team, we have 3 decision points. We have 3 things we need to work through, either explicitly or implicitly. We prefer explicit. So we need to figure out, well, how are we going to go about funding this thing? What are we funding? Is it a project? Is it a value stream, whatever? And how are we going to go about accessing the funds? Do we have to do a formal request? Is it an informal request, and so on? So we have options. So let's choose the best options for the situation that we face. Unfortunately, in this situation, another group, in this case finance, basically gets to make the decision of how we're going, because they have the power. They get to decide, right? And if we come to them, we say, well, we're Agile, and you don't do fixed price on Agile. Instead, you have to do time and material. That's the only way. That's what we learned on our Scrum class, right? That's what our Scrum coach is telling us to do. The finance people are going to listen to you, and you're going to sound like an idiot. Simple as that, right? You sound like a child. And they go, well, yeah, go away, children, leave me alone. But if you can come to them with it, coherently being able to talk about finance, coherently being able, first of all, understand what they're dealing with, and understand the risks associated, the trade-offs associated with these various techniques, you might be able to negotiate a better way of working with them. So maybe time materials is not the way to go because it's perceived as too risky or too hard for them, but they might be willing to go with stage gate. They might be willing to experiment with doing an informal request and stripping away some of the bureaucracy. We might be able to have an intelligent conversation with them and get them to agree that maybe we can improve the ways that we're working, experiment with it, see if it works for us. Okay, and if we can choose intelligently, we can identify strategies with a better chance of working for us. It might not be the best way of working, but it's a better way of working, and we can work our way towards better and better ways of working over time. So this is an interesting strategy for you that solves real problems that your organization probably faces. And this is just one of many examples. So the DA toolkit, and we'll go to questions in about a minute or so. The DA toolkit addresses business agility in general, and the examples I worked through was a software team doing disciplined agile delivery. Talked about finance. I think HR was in there, and maybe procurement or somebody else. But the reality is that all aspects of your organization can improve. All aspects of your organization can get better. Another interesting thing about this, you can see in the orange layer, the foundation layer, is that Disciplined Agile is actually a hybrid. We adopt strategies and practices from a wide range of techniques. Actually, I'll go back to this previous slide. On this slide, there are funding. First of all, it's funding, and it's not software development. But there are funding techniques that are very traditional in nature, and some reasonably lean, reasonably agile techniques. So we give you choices from a wide range of sources because there's a lot of great ideas within Agile, of course, but external Agile as well. So it's a hybrid. So we help you to choose the best way of working possible for you in the situation that you face. And sometimes the most appropriate strategy right now is a more traditional technique. And that's okay. Do the best that you can in the situation that you face. So just to wrap up here, so I would invite you to learn a little bit more about Disciplined Agile. So at PMI, we offer several certifications. The Disciplined Agile Scrum Master, in that certification, you'll learn a lot about Agile and Lean, but more importantly, we start giving you some fundamental skills to improve at both the personal and the team level. How do we actually do retrospectives and do GCI at the team level? In the Disciplined Agile Senior Scrum Master, we get more into enterprise class Agile. The realities that you face working in an existing, larger or medium-sized organization, in regulatory and many other situations, and we teach you how to lead the improvement at the team level, right? And sometimes at the multiple teams level. Say if you're in a program, for example. The Disciplined Agile coach learns to lead improvement across disparate teams. So in this example where I was talking about, my software development team and the finance team, these are very disparate teams with different ways of working. So how do you actually go about having these intelligent conversations and negotiating better ways of working? It's a little bit, there's a little more to it than the brief example I gave, but that's the gist of the DAC. And finally, how do you do this at the organization level? How do you improve value streams, and how do you lead and guide the improvement across an entire organization when there's many different types of teams, and they're all doing their own things with different priorities and different bodies of knowledge and different priorities and different mindsets. How do you actually pull that off? Because that's what you're actually trying to achieve. And it's not about adopting Agile. It's not about adopting a framework. It's about learning how to learn. It's about learning how to become a learning organization, so that way you can get on that good improvement curve that I was talking about earlier. So thank you very much. Let's go to the panel.
Great, Scott. Thank you. It's very clarified for us about GA and much more. So let's start the panel here. We have some questions and some subject that is interesting to talk about. I will put some questions here on the screen. The first one is from Alcides, as you talk first here.
Yeah. So I think the question was cut out, but let me and that's exactly I think it would be the first question I would ask Scott. Thank you so much, Scott, for the presentation. It's always great to listen to your presentations about Disciplined Agile and all these details and how this can help organizations. So the question that I'm asked sometimes goes like this. Let's say someone that is watching us now, that's watching you, gets interested about Disciplined Agile and follows the recommendation that you just gave to learn more about it, and eventually this individual goes on a training and obtain the DASM certification, which doesn't require any previous Agile experience. So that individual is really excited about Disciplined Agile and wants to make a difference in their organization, in the organization he or she works for. So once this individual learns more about it and it's really into it and really believes that can help the organization, and sees problems in organizations, opportunities to implement or to adopt the DEA mindset to help the organization, what would you recommend for this individual? What would be the steps from that point of where he's highly motivated and studying DA to the point that he's really making a difference at the organization? What should this individual do to help the organization adopt DA?
Yeah, so start applying it in practice. I think the English like to say the proof is in the pudding, right? Mm-hmm. So on the DASM workshop, and same with the other certifications, you learn how to apply the toolkit. So either use the digital version from your laptop or your tablet, or I've seen a lot of people walk around with a physical Choose Your Wow book, and just apply it. So when somebody else in the organization tells you about a problem, right? We're having problems securing funding, or how the heck do we do architecture in Agile, or how the heck do we does testing fit in, or whatever issue they've got. Apply the toolkit right then and there, right? Like look up architecture. Oh well, look, there's a 2 process goal around architecture. Oh, look, there's this secure funding process goal. And oh, what problems are you running into? Oh, wow, this is a technique. Oh, look, right here, the problems you just told me about. Look, in the book, it says those are the sorts of things you should expect. Oh, look, there's 3 other techniques. Like I forgot to point out in that goal diagram I showed, when there's an arrow, that's an indication that the strategies towards the top of the list are generally more effective than the strategies towards the bottom of the list. So, when you're dealing with the finance team, you say, well, yeah, fixed price. Yeah, that's a really good way to go. Oh, wait a minute. There's 4 other techniques that are better. Maybe could we at least talk about them and see if we could experiment with them, right? So you can start having better conversations. And it's interesting that I've seen people like working with experienced Scrum professionals or experienced SAFe professionals, and they'll be struggling with a problem. And then you say, oh, that's your problem. And then look, Disciplined Agile has six options. You can't even figure out one. Here's DA giving you 6 reasonable ones, and it looks like these 2 might be you choose between those 2 because those are probably the ones you want to experiment with. And so when we teach these workshops, like I've taught these workshops for years sometimes, or like previous incarnations of the workshops, and every so often you'll get an experienced Agile coach who's experienced in some framework, and they'll be sitting there like at the beginning, I'm the big man, I'm the expert, you can't teach me anything, I'm being forced to go on this workshop, but I know everything. And okay, fair enough, whatever. And at the end of literally at the end of the first day, they'll be coming up to me and, oh my God, I had no idea that anybody had solved these problems. And like, my team, the team that I'm coaching, we've been struggling with these 3 problems for weeks or months now. And you've given me, just today, you've given me multiple options that could possibly work. I had no idea. I wish I had this years ago. It's too bad you were stuck in framework jail. So yeah,
but Scott, when you say that the start point is Kaizen looping, is trying to make some experiments in small teams, small size, because if you try to start this in large scale, sometimes it's very challenging situations. What do you suggest for people that is starting learning this approach, this toolkit, as you said?
Well, one of the things
start small, like a startup, something like this.
Yeah. So and this is the thing, right? Like one of the things you learn is to start small. And so, for example, in this finance team example, like there could be there's like dozens or hundreds of teams that are in this situation in your organization that the finance people have inflicted a relatively poor way of funding things on them. So the message isn't change everything in finance to be agile, because that's risky. Nobody and it is threatening. Nobody wants to do that. But if the message is, well, wait a minute, just for this one team, let's experiment this one time with this one technique that sounds like it's better and it sounds like it's reasonable, we can pull it off. Let's see if it works for us on one team, not every team, one team. Suddenly that's less risky because it's an opportunity to learn now. And then if we see that it worked for our team, then we can start doing it on other teams. And then once we've learned that, oh wow, we ran an experiment and it worked, well then maybe we can go up to the next level and the next level, and the next level. Yep. And we can inch into the so we can actually get to where we want. So where a Scrum coach might have told you, well, we have to do time materials because we're agile, that's the only way of doing it, and everybody else can keep it if they're not doing this. Yeah, the finance people are going to go, that's
prescriptive framework.
Go away, children. You're bothering me. Right?
We have more question here from Trentin. Can Disciplined Agile? You can read it, Trentin. Please go. You're on mute.
Yeah. So as we were talking before going live today, I see that Disciplined Agile is getting a lot of attention from the organizations and getting more traction, which is great. It's a very interesting toolkit. And now that it's being widely used by the organizations because of the pandemic, since we were all forced to work from home and find new ways of work. So my question is beyond the Agile project management, because I see lots of different components in Disciplined Agile and even operations and DevOps and other areas in the organizations. So my question is, how can Disciplined Agile help organizations beyond agile project management, beyond project management?
Yeah, so Disciplined Agile always had the entire picture in mind when we first started developing it. So it originally came out of IBM with Disciplined Agile delivery. And what we were doing then was answering the question, how do we do software-based solution delivery from beginning to end, all aspects of it? So management, governance, testing, architecture, requirements, deployment, and many, many other aspects. How does it all fit together? And how do you choose the right techniques for the situation that you face? So from the very beginning, it was always beyond project management. And then as it grew into DevOps and then value streams, and now finally to the enterprise level, it just keeps going. So, I won't go back to the hex diagram, but on the diagram itself, we had portfolio management, program management, governance, enterprise architecture, finance, vendor management, marketing, sales, legal, bunch of other stuff, security, like all these various aspects of what your organization faces and needs to address. So it's always been beyond project management, but certainly project management is in there.
Legal now, compliance.
Regulatory compliance. We were basically the first, within the Agile community to really deal with regulatory compliance in a coherent and explicit manner, because that's the reality that teams face. You're in a regulatory compliance situation. Congratulations, you're in a regulatory situation, and you can still be Agile. That was and we still get into weird conversations. Well, it's regulatory, you can't possibly be Agile. Well, most Agile teams are in a regulatory situation. Sorry. Privacy, all these good sorts of things. There's some form of regulatory for the vast majority of teams.
Maybe because people think that because of being agile, you don't have governance, which is not true.
Yeah,
exactly.
So a question from audience here is, Scotty, I heard that GA is actually more lean than agile. How the name of GA was chosen? Why disciplined?
Yeah, so that's a very good observation, and it's true. It arguably is more lean than agile now. It also depends on what aspects of the toolkit you're using, though. But certainly the mindset is mostly lean, and we constantly point that out. So it's a historical name now. So I would actually argue it's mostly a hybrid now. So if I had to name it something today, it would probably be the Disciplined Hybrid Toolkit or something. Not that would be a good marketing name, but that would be an accurate name. So we originally started calling it Disciplined Agile Delivery back in the day, and then we realized it was about more than just delivery, so we knocked off the second D. But we're not going to change the name again. Changing something is a phenomenally painful thing to do. So it's actually interesting. Dean Leffingwell, when we first started thinking about it, because all the people know each other, right? And Mark Lyons, a co-creator, he actually bounced this idea off Dean, because Dean is our marketing genius, as we all know. And they were out for dinner one night, and Mark said, "Hey, we're thinking about calling it." Renaming it DA. What do you think about that? And he said, "No, don't do that. Changing the name is a phenomenally bad idea." And he was right. We still get people calling it DAD, and we changed the name 6 or 7 years ago now, and we still have people calling it DAD. So,
okay, maybe you can take this moment for understand GA and the connections, hyper agility. It's from Trentin. Trentin, maybe you can contextualize this question.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Citizen Development Framework and this whole concept of hyper agile software development cycle, and also focusing on providing the software technology capabilities for these new ways of work. Because the way I see, and you can explain much better, is that we can define new ways of work by using Disciplined Agile Toolkit. And now we need more automation, more technology to support those processes. And this is what PMI is promoting as the citizen development. So the idea of hyper agility is that you can not only define new ways of work, but also prototype and build things using low code. How do you see that connection or evolution, if that's the case?
Yeah, so we're actually in the process of bringing some of the CD ideas into DA. This is actually having a CD type of a life cycle was one of the things that we missed, which is weird because I actually started my writing career writing about end user computing techniques, which was the precursor to citizen developer. So the ideas that we're now pitching as CD really are 20, 30 years old, but we didn't have the tooling at the time. Right now we have low code environments, and so now it's actually viable finally. So it's very exciting for me. I love it. So the thing to know about CD and the CD strategy is very clear about this, is that one of the things that you do. So for those of you who don't know citizen developer, the basic idea is that using these new low code, no code tools that normal, like non-IT people can develop their own systems to an extent. And one of the very first steps, probably the most critical step in CD, is a triage process right very early in the beginning, where if somebody has this idea for for some application or whatever it is that needs to be built, and then there's got to be a reality check. So they go to a citizen developer architect and they say, here's what we're trying to do, here's whatever it is, and basically they try to figure out what scenario it is. So if it's a fairly straightforward thing, then it would be like pure CD. Yeah, just go off and do it, and use this tool, build your own thing, and we're around if you need any help. The second strategy is basically, yes, this is very possible to do, but you're going to need a few techies involved to, a citizen developer who's trained and certified with the skills to work through some of the harder things, right? So still viable, but maybe not viable for you. but you be actively,
yes, is that path.
Get help. Get help from somebody who's slightly more skilled at this. Or then the third scenario is, wow, this is way too hard, and it really does need to have an IT-based system built. And then you would, I would hope you'd kick into a Disciplined Agile technique. So basically, what we're doing, we're in the process of adding those two other the pure CD and then the assisted CD ways of working into the toolkit, and a few techniques as well. It's embarrassing that, well, for me at least, because I actually did a master's degree in usability and user design, and CD calls out some design strategies that we didn't have in DA. That, in hindsight, geez, how did we miss this? But oh well, But anyway, so we're same old, right? We're adopting great ideas from another source and putting them into context and helping you to choose which is right for you. So I find CD very exciting. I think this is a great thing, and take it seriously is the best advice I can give you. And get started, get a few people started in it, because that triage step is absolutely critical.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's change a little bit the subject from Alcides. You have this point out here. How organization to explain the force and benefits of DA for adopt DA. Alcides, if you want to explain the questions.
Yeah, thanks, Zosimo. And actually, it's kind of a follow-up question on that previous one. And Scott, I really appreciate the fact that when you answered that first question that I asked about how an individual could start applying DA, and you said, look, just start doing some experiment and proposing some ideas and referring to the book, maybe having more interesting conversations. So that's all good. So in other words, what I understand is that it's easier than we think, and DA is designed to be easier than we think. So now, how does this individual, how does he convince the company to invest more, to have more people eventually trained, and eventually the organization will fund some of these trainings, or build some teams that will be specialized in DA, so they will be the internal coaches? And how does an organization can scale this initiative within within its set of processes. That initiative that was first initiated by one individual. So how this individual make the organization understand that it's something that is worth investing in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a couple things. So one of the things that PMI is we're in the process of putting together some short videos answering these sorts of various questions to make it easier for people to understand what the value prop is of DA. But I think also you as an individual, when you're applying DA to solve a problem, just point it out. Just say, hey, you know what? This problem that you guys are struggling with, look how fast, look how easily I came up with some potential ways to experiment with. And I did this because I had some training in DA. And I was able to navigate this toolkit and look at look at this, like the one nice thing with the physical book. It's like, look how big this book is, and look at all these great ideas. And you might not need all of them now, but the thing is, this is why it's a reference manual, right? It's like when we run into the funding problem, I'll go look at the funding stuff. When we run into an architectural problem, I'll go look at the architecture stuff, right? So dive in when you need to dive into it, and that's why it's so thick, right? Is because what we do is complicated. And so then that's a very coherent thing, right? And people can start, wow, yeah, if we had more people that could dive in quickly to identify something to experiment with, that makes a lot more, that makes a lot of sense, right? And particularly when, we're seeing all this fail fast rhetoric, because that's failing. As a strategy, the fail fast strategy is failing in a lot of organizations because they don't like all these failures, and we're failing with stupid things. Right, like it's just experiment more intelligently is what we're getting at here, and that is a phenomenally coherent message for senior management. Let's just fail less often.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, is it fair to say that this convincing process will be through the quick wins that DA can bring to the organization?
Yeah, quick wins speak, right? Because it's not theory anymore, right? It's you can see it work in practice. Look, I applied the toolkit in our situation to solve a problem that the Agile guys couldn't figure out on their own because they only know the one framework. Like this is the big challenge with the frameworks. And when you get certified in a framework, well, you get certified in framework, and some of the you'll get certified in the basics of Agile and stuff like that. But if you get certified in Scrum, you're going to learn Scrum. Your Scrum blinders will be on, and like things Mario was talking about earlier, issues like governance, which are swear words for some of the purists, we deal with coherently because our observation is you're being governed, and you deserve to be governed well. And here's how you do it, right? And if you don't, and that's the thing. Like the Agile teams are frustrated sometimes with senior management. Senior management's stupid and they don't know what they're doing. And the finance guys, they're stupid. They don't know what they're doing. And they're or the procurement guys, look how inefficient they are. They're so stupid. Yes, but they're not stupid. They're good, smart people who are doing the best they can, and they don't realize maybe the implications of what's going on. And you've got to be able to work with them effectively. You've got to be able to help them, and telling them about holding a daily standard meeting for 15 minutes isn't going to get the job done, right? So we need to up our game, and so start applying the toolkit to show people that it is possible to help procurement work in a more effective manner, and here's how we can govern. Just basic things like how do we your organization is not going to ever go Agile in an effective manner if they can't govern it. They'll never tolerate it. Just won't, right? So you've got, if you can't, and so if you treat governance like a swear word, you're not even at the adult table anymore. That's the hardcore reality for Agile coaches. If you're in purist mode, you are not at the adult table. You might not.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, Trintin, you wanted to do some questions? Go ahead.
There you go. So back to this scalability and governance topic, I think that this is what scares people and organizations most, because they don't know exactly how to adopt Agile and scale Agile. And I agree totally that just focusing on a specific framework don't provide you all the tools you need to the context and complexity you have in the organization. But how can we describe this to a large organization? You know, could you provide an example of using Disciplined Agile in organization-wide, in a large organization? How do they start? And then how they connected the dots in the different areas?
Yeah, so it actually depends. So just like organizations are different, you all have different starting points. So for example, in the transformation process blade, which is those little hexes are we call process blades, and one of them we have talks about transformation, and we're very clear at the very beginning. You need to figure out where you are. You need to align with what you're trying to achieve. Where you are and what you're trying to achieve. And then our assumption is that your real goal is to become a learning organization, to learn, to get better at getting better, to always be improving. So it's not just to adopt a framework. But the point is to get from point A, where you currently are, to point B, a learning organization. Any given roadmap has multiple ways. Like if you bring up MapQuest or Google Maps, there's many different ways that you can get from Curitiba to Sao Paulo, for example, right? You could fly, you could take the bus, you could drive on this road, drive on that road, do whatever, right? There's many different ways. So there's different paths, and different people will take different paths to get there. And this is the exact same thing with a transformation. That, so if you're an existing safe shop, your transformation to become a learning organization is different than if you are currently an organization that doesn't have any Agile experience at all, which is different again than an organization that's partially Agile, but has been doing their own thing and it's been sort of haphazard. So you're some way down the path, but you don't know how to get, you don't know how to get the rest of the way. Or maybe you've adopted Agile in the IT space reasonably well, but now you're dealing with procurement, finance, and marketing, and you're suddenly discovering they're just not interested in all this IT stuff that you want to talk about. And all this training, all this Agile training, which is completely focused on IT and nothing else, is of no interest to them, right? Where, one of the things we do in our training, we make sure we have very little IT stuff, that most of our examples are non-IT focused now. And actually in the Disciplined Agile coach, there's only one time that IT is mentioned, and they're a problem team that we have to deal with because they're not as agile as they need to be. So anyway, it totally turned the tables. But yeah, so it's a very, very interesting. So your organization needs to understand that your transformation path will be different than others. So if you're looking for one size fits all, there isn't one. So the Brightline initiative, actually, we leverage that. We're starting to leverage that in Toolkit, and later on this year, we're going to make it a lot more explicit to do that. So that addresses a couple paths in what we consider basic paths, because for the harder aspects of some of the harder transformations. But like I said, if you're already a safe shop, then, or reasonably a safe shop, or reasonably a Scrum shop, then you're in a different situation. And because we know that you're doing safe or doing Scrum, we can pretty much tell you right now what problems you're running into, because that's the nature of the frameworks. So as a result, if you're doing safe, then here's a collection of plays that can help you to improve, to solve common challenges that safe organizations run into. And this is what we teach you in the DAVSC. And then what's really interesting is that once you get into this mode of, well, wait a minute, we can do it, here we can do this play to improve on this aspect of safe, and here's another play to get us the next step. Then you start to realize, well, wait a minute, we can actually learn and we can improve on our own. And so what we do is, by applying these plays, showing you how to apply these plays, it has the side effect of teaching you how to become a learning organization and to get out of the framework jail. And there's nothing wrong with remaining a safe shop, but improving on doing that and really tailoring it to meet your needs. But maybe safe is not the way to go for you. Maybe it never was, but you didn't know anything. That would be no, right?
Do you have more questions, or you can select someone from audience? We have here some about culture, how to deal with opposite culture direction from companies. It's a kind of challenge that all kind of
cultural resistance. Yeah, I think this is a great question. I was thinking about something similar to this, and it's a great question by Marcius, because you have to change the mindset, in order to really embrace Disciplined Agile. One of the things I notice is that, actually, it's not extensive material. You don't need months to read it, let's say, or, 400-hour courses in an MBA. But some people just read it and cannot apply because you fear, rejection, failure. You fear trying to, try and fix things. So how can we overcome that? By training? Is there any other tips and tricks in adopting the Disciplined Agile mindset more than the framework?
So this is the beauty of it. We're not pushing a big bang adoption, right? And there's ways you can do big bang adoptions, but they're phenomenally risky. Most organizations don't do that. So one of the aspects, one of the guidelines of the Disciplined Agile mindset is that you change the system. You change the culture by changing the system. And that's a pure lean concept, by the way. And so what it says is that if you need to change the culture for whatever reasons, then change the way that you work first. Start making changes, small changes in the way that you work, and culture will follow. So in the example I gave where we were changing the ways of working with finance, because the fundamental problem is that this Agile software development team had a very different culture than the finance team, which was presumably had a more traditional culture, and rightfully so, good for them. But I can't first of all, I can't force them to change their culture. That is a losing proposition. And second, I can't, even if they wanted to change the culture, they can't change it overnight. Right? It takes a long time. Culture change is slow. But what we can easily do and safely do is start experimenting with new ways of working. And what happens is over time, as you behave in different ways, your culture will start to reflect these new ways of working. So then the question becomes, now I still can't tell you how your culture will evolve, but it'll evolve and hopefully in a positive way. If not, then keep changing your ways of working until finally you work your way into a more positive situation. But it's one of those things where you inch your way into it over time. But yeah, if you're looking for quick wins, you're not going to get them, particularly on the culture issue. You could fire everybody, I guess, but
It's
that would be a quick lose.
yeah, that's a quick lose, very quick lose. But yeah, doing a massive culture shift isn't going to work out for you.
We have another here. It's more about examples in the disruptive companies using DA. We have something to talk about. Alcides said something about the Panera Bread, I guess, or the chain, bakery chain, no?
Yeah, so I think Anderson is asking a very good question. And I've been asked these questions as well. I mean, my students or people I interact with, they say, look, do we have successful cases of companies using DA? And are they from other industries other than IT and software development? And you mentioned, Scott, that this is exactly the idea. And Trentin also asked something before, saying it goes beyond the project management, right? So I think I would just tag along Anderson's questions and reiterate that I know the Panera case fairly well. I really enjoyed that case when I studied it. There's Suncor Energy. There are tons of successful cases out there, but maybe not everybody is aware of these cases. So disruptive organizations, I think that was the expression that Anderson mentioned, disruptive organizations that are successfully using DA. Indeed, it's a very good question.
Yeah, let me bring up I'll bring up a slide again. I wasn't going to do this, but we have a classic logo slide, I guess you would call it, and of organizations that have actually applied Agile. So within Brazil itself, Itaú, a couple weeks ago, I did a presentation with Edson Porhilo. I probably just butchered the pronunciation of his name, but and he's actually going to be giving a talk, I believe, on June 1st. about Disciplined Agile as well. But yeah, so as you can see on this slide, a very wide range of organizations have applied Agile. Panera Bread is on there. Loyalty One, a e-commerce points thing. William Hill, a gambling organization. Agiro, a software organization. TD, a finance institution. Some telecoms are there. Some grocery stores are there. A fair bit of finance. Diageo, an alcohol company, or a beverages company, I should say, is there. A pizza chain is there. So there's a wide range, and some insurance companies. So and from all over the world. So it's really interesting. But certainly, it's gone far beyond IT, and always really has. And a lot of these firms started by focusing on their IT, but very quickly went to other aspects of their organization. So if you remember that chart with all the hexes on it, maybe a third of it is IT focused. There's an IT hex, and then there's all the like 6 or 7 hexes for DevOps, and then the rest of it is not IT.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have a question on that, because maybe the problem is the audience we have, because as PMI, we always been focused on project management, which is great, but then it evolved a lot into portfolio management, PMOs, business analysis, Agile, now citizen development, and new products like wicked problem solving, organizational transformation, organizational agility. But I don't know if you have the answer for that, or how could we think in tapping new audiences and tapping new markets, not only the project managers and business analysts, although we are expanding on that to the youth and to the change makers, but maybe we have to find ways. Brightline might be one of these initiatives in approaching, finance organizations, strategic planning organizations, human resources organizations directly, maybe repackaging the Disciplined Agile and citizen development in ways that these new audiences might understand that it's useful, because we know it's useful. It's just that maybe the audience we built until now is more focused on operational levels. If we think about project managers, we are focused on that, or Agile, IT, project management, and so on. So I don't know if you have an answer to that, but how could we really expand Disciplined Agile and citizen development to all the other professions?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity, and I think one of the things that we're doing is we're partnering with other associations. So in the construction industry, for example, in procurement, in security, in other spaces. So and we're bringing DA and other great IP that PMI brings to the market into those spaces, and learning from each other and partnering with these organizations to succeed together. And I think that's a very healthy and good thing that we're going to, and a good trend that's going to continue. For individuals, though, one of the things I would suggest is, if you get more experience and more training and learning in DA, in citizen developer, it's going to just open up opportunities for you. So, for example, I'll keep going back to that finance example. Maybe working, you could have been working with that team for a long time, and maybe you were coaching them, maybe you were leading them, but then suddenly you start interacting with the finance people and help solve a real problem that the organization had, and then for whatever reason you realize, wow, finance is way more interesting than I thought, and then you decide to go off and get some training and move into the finance area for whatever good reasons. So I think that at the individual level, there's a lot of opportunity just to open up opportunities for career advancement and for just doing more interesting things, and however you define interesting. But certainly for PMI as an organization, there's a lot of great opportunity for opening doors that would have been closed to us before DA.
Yeah, that's great advice in building these competencies. Just a quick comment here. This is what I've been trying to advocate also, and I think PMI is doing a great job. That is building the competencies for the future of work in all professions, because some people are worried now that they have to become software developers, have a bachelor degree in computer engineering, or all this stuff, and that's not the way, in my opinion. You have to get the knowledge to transform your own profession. So if you are a doctor, for example, then you learn about citizen development. You can build a paperless application in your hospital, for example. And if you learn Disciplined Agile and you are in human resources, maybe you can improve your processes. So I see DA and CD as life skills more than a profession. It could be a profession. You can be a DA coach or something like this, but as life skills. And if we could maybe promote that more to different audiences, it would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And I would actually say the same thing of project management too. I have an 11-year-old daughter, and one of the challenges with being a parent is you're constantly thinking, what the heck is this kid going to do for a living? How can I help her, prepare her for this changing world? So as adults, we're struggling with VUCA. How the heck does an 11-year-old deal with it? And what do you tell her? How do you sort of guide her into something, into gaining skills now that will help her in her 20s and her 30s and her 40s? And it's a pretty short list, actually. When you start working through this, what skills are going to stand the test of time, and what skills and knowledge are going to help you put you in a position to gain the next round of skills and knowledge. And it's things like guided continuous improvement and project management, coordinating projects and coordinating people and all these those are fundamental skills that are not going to go away. Or if they do, by the time they do, the robots have already taken over and we're all done. But it's a very short list of skills that are going to stand the test of time. And PMI has is offering a lot of them.
Okay. We just reach out 1 hour webinar, but I guess that we have one more time and then make some announcements. We have one more question from our audience, and then you finalize and then make some announcements, and then let's see here from Sergio Santos. Are there any tips for DA to apply in automotive industry and this disruptive moment, electrical autonomous car, and most are still stuck in not agile APKP tools? I don't know APKP.
Quality management. It's a very traditional approach to everything, not only to project management, right?
So that's the final question here for today.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're the second or third person that's asked me about AQP in the last couple of months. There's a lot of opportunity for the auto industry and to improve and to change. And I think they have to. I think Tesla has shown that and other organizations as well, but certainly Tesla has shown that there are different ways of working that seem to be more effective, considering how well Tesla's been doing. And I think, to be fair, the automotive community, in some cases, has been applying Agile. In some cases, for many years. I know BMW has, and others. Certainly, Lean coming from Toyota. So there is a lot of opportunity to improve. And also, I think and I don't know AQQP or whatever it is, APQP in great detail. But I have looked. Unfortunately, I have looked at a lot of standards and guidelines in the past, and often they're misinterpreted. So they're often interpreted in a very traditional way, where that was not the intent of the standard. And I look at some of the stuff from PMI. Our governance standard is actually very, very flexible. But I bet you it's not being interpreted that way by most governance people. So so the intent of that standard might not be how is actually applied. So I think there's room, I know for a fact there's room for improvement in the auto industry, and other organizations are in fact applying Agile and Lean, taking experimental approaches, and are successfully doing it. So best advice I can give the auto industry is choose to observe what's going on, because these other organizations are not being constrained the way that you choose to constrain yourself. So, and I would say, and I'd say the same from the finance industry and for the food industry and many others. Really, so if for those of you in a regulatory situation, and many of you are, best advice I can give there is have practical people interpret the regulations, and you'll end up with a more practical response. And it's easier said than done, of course, but you need to get out from under the traditional onerous ways of working, because that will not get the job done these days. And particularly when you can observably see your competitors not doing what you're doing and doing better than you are, I would choose to observe that and choose to learn a few hard lessons on that.
Yeah. So guys, let's the point that you can make some final thoughts. Alcides, you can start, and then Trentin, and then Scott, and then we make some announcements. Thank you. Go ahead, Alcides.
Yeah,
final
thank
thoughts.
you. Thanks, Zosimo. Look, Scott, it's been a great hour that we spent together here, and I'm sure the audience also appreciate a lot. I was very happy to hear you mention the Bright Light Initiative. We talked about citizen development. So this is all good, and it gives me a little bit of a grasp of what's coming next, also, which is always interesting to know. So thanks a lot for your insights, for sharing all of this knowledge with us. Thanks, Zosimo, for organizing this event. Trentin for being on the stage also, and having these great questions. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
Stay in the room, okay? We'll make some announcements too, okay?
All right. So I would like to thank you, Scott. It's great to learn from you. And also, I believe that Disciplined Agile, this toolkit that you invented with Mark Lines, is really a revolution in the way we work, because we've been struggling with traditional project management and then the Agile frameworks and all of that. But Disciplined Agile really organized our thoughts and different approaches, so that we were able as organizations to develop our really way of work. Some organizations were already doing that, as the Spotify method and some of this, but then you didn't have guidance on how to do that. I've been studying some of these organizations, the Asana areas of responsibilities, this kind of stuff, but you just read the outside and not navigate how to navigate and build your own. And Disciplined Agile did that. And to some extent, I believe that citizen development is a creation of Disciplined Agile, because the organizations get flexible, agile, and then they went to the market to buy off-the-shelf software, Primavera, Project Online, this kind of stuff. And they have intellectual property in their processes because of Disciplined Agile, and they couldn't find the software. Now they can build their own applications, and PMI is doing a great mix in having both. So I would like to thank you by creating this and promoting and also encourage you and PMI to take this to other audiences, not only project managers and business analysts that we have. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks everybody for inviting me, and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to come and listen to this podcast or webcast. Things I'd like to leave you with is, you can choose choose to choose your own way of working, choose to work smarter, to learn and to get better, and to become change makers in your organization. You can do this, and you can be successful, and choose to try and to start improving right now. Start applying some of this stuff tomorrow, because you can start making small changes, and you have permission to do this. You can do this and do it successfully. So I would invite you to do so. And I hope that take a look at Disciplined Agile, and I suspect you'll be able to find very easy ways to make very important improvements at your organization using the DA toolkit.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks, guys, for this session. It's an opportunity to learning from you guys, especially you, Scott. As you prefer, feel free to share some content with us here in the magazine. It's a pleasure to publish something from you, your authority in this kind of subject. Thank you for your time. I appreciate that. And then you're very welcome here in Brazil in the Mundo PM magazine.
Thank you. I look forward to getting back to Brazil once we're all allowed to travel again. It's one of my favorite countries.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Some.
Thank you.
Claps here.
Yeah.
I would love to make some announcements about some training situation here. Alcides, you can, if you want to stay, Scott is very welcome. But now I will ask you to talk in Portuguese. Maybe Alcides. Alcides, you have some training in English too, no?
Yes, I will.
Enjoy. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Bye.
Português ou inglês, Zósimo?
As you prefer, my friend. You said that you have some training in Canada.
Yes, if I can share the screen. Also, I have something to show, but basically, it's I'm representing a JUMP professional training here that especially the Brazilian community knows Adriano Tavares, Anderson Salles. I'm part of this team now as well, and we have some training happening very soon. Actually, there's a DASM training, so Disciplined Agile Scrum Master training happening this weekend, and I know it's last minute, but it's a great training, and for the participants of this conference here, we are offering 20% off if enrollments are made by tomorrow. So there's my screen has if I can share my screen, Zósimo, I don't know if I can, but if
you
can not, we can
have the share below. Yeah.
You have share below.
Oh yeah, it's on me. Sorry. So yeah. So this is the screen I'm sharing now. So DASM. DASM is the certification that you see at the top. I don't know if you can see the screen already.
No,
okay.
I added this screen.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So DASM is this training here in light blue at the top of the screen, and basically with this QR code here, you get 20% off. If you scan this QR code, or if you go to this website here, this page here, you have a page with the links with the training. There are two trainings happening this weekend, one in Portuguese and one in English. So the Portuguese is delivered by Adriano Tavares. The one in English is delivered by myself. So both trainings have 20% off for those who enroll between now and tomorrow. And the link to enroll is on the screen. Should I repeat that in Portuguese, Zósimo, or we are good?
Yeah, it's good to repeat in Portuguese, because I guess that the Anderson is the same classroom, or I'm not sure.
Yes. Okay, so
okay.
Vou falar pouco em português agora.
Okay.
Vou praticar o meu português. Exatamente. Então, Jump, que é uma empresa bem conhecida dos brasileiros já, que trabalha, que dá treinamento em Disciplined Agile há algum tempo já. Eu agora faço parte dessa equipe também, então tenho o prazer de fazer parte dessa equipe, e a Jump está, nesse final de semana, dando treinamento do DASM, que é esse aqui, em azul claro aqui em cima, O treinamento do DA-SSM existe também, mas essa oferta aqui é para esse treinamento que está acontecendo esse final de semana. É um pouco em cima da hora, mas para aqueles que têm intenção de fazer o curso, tem disponibilidade sábado e domingo, o curso em português e o curso em inglês, são 2 cursos que estão acontecendo ao mesmo tempo. Eles têm 20% de desconto, o website para ter acesso ao treinamento, ao desconto está aí, o QR Code ou o website. Então são 2 treinamentos que acontecem ao mesmo tempo, um em português, que vai ser feito pelo Adriano Tavares, né, como instrutor, e o treinamento em inglês que vai ser dado por mim. Então, 2 treinamentos acontecendo ao mesmo tempo, 20% de desconto para quem fizer a inscrição entre hoje e amanhã. É isso aí.
Eu coloquei o link também para o pessoal poder acessar, né, ver mais detalhes sobre os cursos. E esse promo code é realmente aí para quem estava aí acompanhando, para quem acompanha o canal, para quem acompanha a revista e a Jump, ok? Para vocês, Trentin, você também tem algumas iniciativas com Citizen Development eu não sei se você
Temos algumas atividades aí junto ao PMI, né, uma parte de voluntariado, na verdade, e aí tem alguns webinars vindo por aí também, quem quiser acompanhar, pode até acompanhar lá no meu canal do YouTube, ou os próprios canais aí, onde a gente vai fazer mais webinars do PMI, e o próprio evento que vai ocorrer do PMI Latam daqui 2 semanas, né, 5, 6 de maio, vamos estar lá falando um pouco mais sobre o Citizen Development, e provavelmente vamos criar alguma coisa aí junto com a Mundo PM para formar mais Citizen Developers aqui. O framework do PMI foi publicado esse ano, o Citizen Development Framework, e também existe um conjunto de certificações associado a esse framework, que estão acontecendo aqui ao longo do ano. Quem assiste aí os webinars do PMI, por enquanto temos o Citizen Development Foundation, que a ideia é poder divulgar isso mais no Brasil também. Fica o nosso dever de casa aí, né, Osósio, de criar, através da Mundo PM, algo que traga mais Citizen Development para o Brasil, né?
Nós estamos formatando, né, Trentin, essa conexão entre Citizen Development e algum framework de inovação, que é o que a gente tem trabalhado aqui na revista também. E logo, logo vai estar aí disponível para vocês. Acompanhe o nosso site, né? Sempre a gente faz essas divulgações lá também. Pessoal, eu queria agradecer a vocês, em especial ao Anderson Salles, que também está aí junto conosco, né, Anderson? Se você puder botar o teu e-mail aí, Anderson, no chat, para o pessoal também quiser entrar em contato. Eu já passei os links dos treinamentos, aproveitem, 20% é um belo desconto, né? É uma inscrição temporária aí até amanhã, às 12 horas, depois reduz esse desconto aí. Enfim, essa é a intenção dos nossos talks aqui, né? Trazer personalidades aí que possam contribuir com o nosso entendimento sobre as novidades em gestão de projetos. O Scott aí foi bastante carinhoso conosco, assim, né? Ajudou bastante a entender as iniciativas do PMI. Eu acho isso bastante louvável. Realmente é uma modernização aí que está havendo em todas as abordagens do PMI. Isso vale a pena acompanhar de perto. E é isso, pessoal. Agradeço você, Alcides, Trentinho, obrigado pela participação.
Obrigado pelo convite.
Obrigado pelo carinho. Pela oportunidade. E vamos para frente. Até a próxima aí.
Até a próxima.
E obrigado por tudo.
Até a próxima.
Tchau,
boa noite a todos. Tchau, tchau.